We live in an era of infringing judicial fascism, where the powers of the presidency and Congress are being usurped by courts. Nobody in their right mind, nobody with a minimum of a fifth-grade education, could read the Constitution or Declaration of Independence and arrive at any other conclusion than this is a theistic document. A plain reading to a person of average intelligence would say the people who wrote this, their intention was that our models of democracy are based on biblical principles and the presupposition of a supreme being. Amen. Somebody with a fifth-grade education. But now, people who went to Harvard Law School say, no, you can't do that, it's un-American. The overwhelming majority of people in the 1960s wanted prayer in the schools. However, it was Earl Warren, a Republican appointed by a Republican president, Eisenhower. His Supreme Court outlawed it. A Republican. Then there was another Republican Supreme Court justice, Warren Burger, appointed by a Republican, Richard Nixon. Roe versus Wade. Jane Roe, not her real name, is now a born-again Christian and admits the whole thing was a setup. It was not even a legal decision made on the merits of medical science or obstetrics. Purely an argument on right of privacy, without any reference to the embryological realities. Again, a Republican. Now, we have Sandra Day O'Connor, recently retired from the Supreme Court, appointed by Ronald Reagan, another Republican. She wrote the decision, you have to remove the Ten Commandments from the judicial building in Alabama, despite the fact that nearly 80% of the American public wanted it there in every poll taken. Forget about democracy, it's going. Forget about identifying either being a Democrat or a Republican with being a Christian. I will pray for whoever gets elected, but that's nothing to do with my faith. We will be hated by all nations for his name's sake. Now that this nation has departed from its biblical heritage, democracy and the freedom it has engendered is going out the window quickly. We have to realize that. And so we begin. I'll take you back to 1983. Suicide attacks in Lebanon, killing 281 American Marines. They were on their way by helicopter to where I was standing at Rambam Medical Center in Haifa, Israel, extremely experienced in battle trauma, probably the hospital most experienced in battle trauma anywhere in the world at that time because of the previous Lebanese war. And I was standing there, and there were people who worked there, some of them believers, waiting for these American Marines to be medevaced from Lebanon. Imagine your son, an American Marine, 20 minutes from an operating table in Israel. But so as not to offend Saudi Arabia, the Reagan White House orders those Marines medevac to Wiesbaden, Germany, and your son arrives DOA when his life could have been saved had he been brought to Israel, because you can't offend the Saudi Arabians. Don't tell me about being a Democrat or Republican. I'll pray for any of them, but I trust none of them. I trust Jesus. We'll be hated by all nations. I watched our own government kill our own Marines. I stood there. But let's continue. Bridget told us about her country last night, but what she did not tell you about her country was, in 1991, President Bush I and James Baker handed Lebanon on a silver platter to Syria and Iran. Handed it on a silver platter. Israel evacuated, and that same land was used to attack Israel again. They created a terrorist enclave in Lebanon that perpetrated genocidal atrocity against Christians and continued the jihad against Israel. That was land for peace. Then Bush Jr. and his Condoleezza Rice pressured Israel to withdraw unilaterally from Gaza without a peace treaty. No peace treaty, just leave. The next day, Kesem and Katyusha rockets being fired at Sderot on the outskirts of Tel Aviv. What is their response? Yesterday, now give them some more land. Now give the Muslims some more land for peace. You understand what's happening here? This is not just the betrayal of America. It's not just the betrayal of Israel. What do you do What do you do when you have a leader who claims to be a Christian, who says we all have the same God, who takes a book, the Koran, that says God has no son, puts it in the White House, and then after September 11th, and every year since September 11th, 7 years in a row, celebrates Ramadan in the White House? But that's only politics. These are only politicians. The politics of oil. In November, a young woman, aged 19, who had been gang raped by 21 Muslim men in Saudi Arabia, was sentenced to 90 lashes. The victim was to be flogged by a Muslim Mutawa policeman as the victim. A woman can't drive a car in Saudi Arabia, so if she needs a lift, she has to get it from a male. So it becomes her fault. She was gang raped by 21 men because she got a lift from somebody, sentenced 90 lashes. When her lawyer complained that it reached the international media, it embarrassed Islam. It was increased to 200 lashes. Imagine your 19-year-old daughter being gang raped by 21 Muslim men and she is sentenced to 200 lashes. The same day, Condoleezza Rice invited the Saudi Arabian foreign minister to come to Annapolis. Not a word of protest from the White House. You'll be hated by all nations for my name's sake. It's not about Democrats or Republicans. It's not about liberal or conservatives. It's about the God of this world and the returning Christ. That's what it's about. These things are not new, but let's understand what's happening. Bearing the cross, flogged and deported. As we speak, the United States government, as I've said before here in California, last year, the American State Department, Condoleezza Rice, gave 10,000 visas to Saudi Arabian Wahhabists to come into the United States. These are Wahhabists. They're radical. Funding the construction of Islamic institutions, madrasas, mosques all over America. You cannot build one church in Saudi Arabia. Yes, a Quran in the White House, but you will not find the New Testament in the Royal Palace of Riyadh. Flogged with metal wires, then deported. Yet, the CAIR, the Council of American Islamic Relations, if you even utter one word in the press about Islamic persecution, they call you an Islamophobe. This is ignored.